Hello and welcome to the ASEF podcast. I'm Frenk Dragar, ASEF Fellow 2023, a student of Artificial Intelligence at Utrecht University and an alumni of Computer Science and Mathematics at the University of Ljubljana. I'm the host of the vertical on business and technology. In this series of podcasts, we explore how businesses leverage innovative technology, their impact on society, and related topics. Today, we'll be talking about university spinouts. I'm delighted to welcome two of our guests, Tomaž Skrbinšek from DIVJALabs and Blaž Zoubek from SPEKTRAL. Please give us a quick introduction of yourselves and your companies. Let's start with Tomaž.
Hi, I'm Tomaž Skrbinšek, as Frenk said. I'm a university professor at the University of Ljubljana and co-founder and director of DIVJALabs. Our DIVJALabs is a spin-out company of biotechnical faculty at the University of Ljubljana. We focus on application of molecular genetics and computational tools to biodiversity conservation problems and wildlife management, which in practice it means that we provide solutions for biodiversity monitoring. For example, we use molecular genetics to estimate size of wildlife populations, connectivity between them, determine diet from their feces, to figure out food web connections, using environmental DNA, DNA taken from environmental samples, soil, water, to figure biodiversity status. And we mainly focus on business to business services for different governmental organizations and NGOs dealing with nature conservation and natural resource management, and a bit also with providing services to academia.
Awesome, thank you. And Blaž?
Yeah, first, hi Frank, hi Tomaž, hi everybody listening. My name is Blaž Zoubek. I'm a structural engineer and one of the two co-founders of the spin-out company SPEKTRAL. What we're working on, the main focus is the seismic safety of buildings and engineering structures like bridges. On one hand, we're using advanced computer simulations and probabilistic methods to predict dynamic response of buildings in case of earthquakes. And by that, we're helping property owners and real estate developers in making investment decisions. Also, we develop specific structural elements that can enhance seismic behavior of certain problematic buildings. By problematic, I mean the buildings with low seismic resistance.
Okay, thank you. So, when we're talking about a spin-out company, how is that different from, let's say, a classical startup?
Yeah, university spin-out, they typically originate from academic institutions. So often they're based on some sort of research developed within the universities, or technology developed, or just some know-how. This stuff can be proprietary and protected or not. And at least at the beginning, they would have tight relationship with the university, which involves licensing or some fees and also some help from the university. And then later they can become completely independent. And the funding can come either from the universities, in some cases, government grants, private investment, or whatever. In our case, we're bootstrapping. We've got some for our own seed funds and personal money, and we're trying to grow organically. The startups, on the other hand, they typically emerge independently from various sources, and they focus on market opportunities, whatever, or addressing some consumer needs. So they're more wide in the spectrum of what they do typically, and operate with more autonomy, at least from the start, with all the risk that comes from that. And also they find the money either from with friends, fools, and family sources, or venture capital angel investors, depending on their idea and what they do. So this is the main difference.
Okay. Blaž, can you tell us a bit about what the process is like in Slovenia? So I think I read somewhere that you have a licensing agreement with the University of Ljubljana. So how does that look in Slovenia and maybe abroad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't like to speak too broadly about processes in Slovenia, as I'm not familiar with all of them in detail. But yeah, like you said, I can share our experience at SPEKTRAL with the Faculty of Civil and Geodetic Engineering and the University of Ljubljana. That is where we span out from. Yeah, to be honest, my colleague and I, initially, we didn't think about terms like startup, spin out, and so on. We simply had an idea and vision to establish a company through which we could offer innovations and expert knowledge in the field of seismic engineering, which we had acquired and helped to develop with our work at the faculty. However, through the so-called Knowledge Transfer Office of the University of Ljubljana and their innovation fund, this is some kind of a competition for entrepreneurial ideas that were developed at the university. We began to familiarize ourselves with this concept, and by presenting the product, Seismolink, the innovation fund competition, we received an award of a few thousand euros, which was then allocated to the faculty of Civil and Geodetic Engineering, not to SPEKTRAL, since the invention was developed at the faculty within some European research projects and in the frame of my PhD studies. But then when SPEKTRAL took over the sales, marketing, for development of the product, some kind of a licensing agreement was established between the university faculty and the company. And even though there isn't a specific legal framework for the so-called spin-out companies, Tomaž, maybe you can correct me, but as far as I know, there isn't. This licensing agreement is exactly what defines our relationship, our former relationship with the faculty and the university.
Yeah, maybe to pitch in, our experience was a bit different because we don't have any protected intellectual property behind it, not an invention, but it's know-how and experience that has been developed over the last more than a decade, which is not protected in any way, but it's in our heads, but it was developed within the university. So, of course, we also have our licensing agreement where we pay part of our profit for a certain time to the university to compensate for the university for taking this know-how out and using it in the market.
Okay, thank you. So now let's jump into the journey of your companies in more depth. First, we'll take a look at DIVJALabs. So how did the company start? How is it doing now?
Yeah, so we started basically as basic science. We're biologists, highly motivated also in conservation, and then got worked through different research grants, conservation grants in large conservation projects. But then over the years, the demand for these services kind of kept growing, but from the perspective of pure science, this was becoming less and less interesting. So at a certain point, it just didn't make sense to do this in the academic setting. Also, the scaling is difficult. It's very difficult to work something that market-oriented service within the university. It's just not geared up for that stuff. So it made more and more sense to bring it to the market. We started working a bit more than a year ago. We got everything negotiated with the university and did the spin out. And we're actually doing better than we expected. It was a kind of a rough journey at the beginning. We were quite worried, if this was going to work. But we were surprised how much demand there is for our services, because while in academia, we never actually looked for this type of work. The work was always finding us. People wanted that and they sent us an email. We never did any marketing. And now when we actually did some marketing, applied ourselves a little bit to looking for work, we're actually, and saying a little bit, we didn't even have time to put up a web page yet. We're getting more work than what we thought we would. So we're actually scaling up. So within the last year, we managed to achieve completely organically through bootstrapping quite some financial liquidity. So we're able to work. We managed to fully employ 4 people, and we're realistically considering buying and equipping our own lab within the next year. So this is where we're quite happy with how this is progressing.
That's amazing. So when you're talking about getting customers, so first they were incoming, but now you're also applying some marketing. What are the main targets? Like, what are the main markets for you currently?
Yeah, our main market are governmental organizations like ministries, governmental agencies, then large nature conservation NGOs, international foundations, but then on the other hand also academia, where they lack capacity for certain part of research, and we can provide this service to them so they can forward their own research interests. We currently work mostly within EU. We have some collaborations beyond EU, and of course ambitions to expand both geographically and in scope. So we'll see how this works out. Now the thing here is, we have biodiversity crisis, and it's a really big challenge that humanity is facing. So our human societies are looking for solutions, and budgets and markets tend to follow this trend. EU strategies actually foresee considerable growth in spending for biodiversity conservation to a very large proportion of the total EU budget. It's already there, but if you want to do biodiversity conservation and in general, natural resources management, you need hard scientific data, and these data are often very difficult to get. So this is where we jump in. We can offer some solutions. Genetics is very much like a Swiss Army knife. You can use it for many things. And also within the field of nature conservation, natural resources management, it offers really, really advantages. You can do stuff that you cannot do in any other manner. So that's where we are.
Okay, and that brings us a little bit. So you mentioned getting data from genetic samples. In the intro, you mentioned a bit about acquisition of these samples. Can you tell us a bit more about where you get these samples from and how do you analyze them?
Yeah, we organisms leave DNA in the environment basically wherever we go or they go. It falls off through hair, through dandruff, through whatever comes out of our body. It has our DNA. So we track that. We can follow this with molecular genetics. So our samples are scats, like fecal samples found in the environment, urine in snow, saliva around bite wounds, like the stuff you see in the CSI shows, for example. On one hand, on the other hand, we use really environmental samples, like for snow tracks. We sample snow and then identify which animal walked there, or just sample water and identify which organisms live in this body of water. So it's something that's a decade or 2 decades ago seemed like science fiction almost. So samples are typically provided by our clients. We don't go around and collect samples, but we provide help with designing studies. How the samples should be collected to answer their questions, and we provide sampling materials and instructions. And of course, the sample collection process of this has to be specifically tailored to each project in question. So that's where we jump in.
Okay, thank you. And then for the process of analysis, what kind of technologies and skills? You mentioned some know-how. How is that used?
Yeah, our main tools of trade are molecular genetics and bioinformatics. To describe how this works, so a sample arrives to our lab, we extract DNA, we purify DNA from it, and then we amplify specific targeted DNA markers, again, depending on the question and what we want to do with that. And we sequence the DNA from these amplified markers using next generation DNA sequencing. These technologies have developed explosively in the last 20 years. And what actually samples are, it depends on the question. As I said, anything from the stuff that animals leave, then up to environmental samples of soil, water, snow, even air, can be used as a sample. And then, once we've amplify and sequence these markers, then we use computational tools, which we often develop or modify ourselves to analyze the data. And this typically requires quite some programming skills and also some quite high-end, high-performance computers to be able to analyze this.
Okay, and then downstream, when your company, so first upstream, what kind of species are focused on this, and then what do these institutions, so like government, academics, what do they do with this data?
So much of our current work, it's basically heritage that started within the academia. It revolves around large mammals. We started working mainly with European large carnivores, wolves, bear, and lynx, but are now also expanding into several other species, for example, roe deer, red deer, otter. What we have a considerable advantage to other people working on this is that we have a very diverse team of experts, also very international. So we can cover complex, difficult studies, basically from the design phase up to the data analysis and reporting. We can develop new high-performance genetic markers from scratch, and for a species that hasn't been really researched before. So which makes us much more flexible than the vast majority of people that do this sort of stuff. And besides that, now we're getting more and more work with this environmental DNA, actually DNA taken from the environment, not only directly with the species per se, but more taking sample from environment and see which species live in that environment, for example. So our results are often directly used for management to inform decision-making processes, for strategies, plans on how to manage the specific species or ecosystems. But of course, sometimes we also help directly with some basic science questions. When academia people need some part done from us, we help with that. So.
Okay, thank you. So, putting things into perspective, how does Slovenia compare against the world in your market niche? What are some Slovenian strengths, and what could be created to create a more supportive environment for spin-offs in biology, for example?
And in what we do, we're in many regards actually quite ahead of most other EU countries. For example, for monitoring of large carnivores, we're now Germany and Scandinavians, but that's basically it. The rest, we're ahead. But we also do this stuff for many European countries. And within the academic community, we managed to develop and make routine the process that highly competitive, also at the European level, but also globally. And a strength also for Slovenia for doing this stuff, one of the things is the simple fact that Slovenia is a nice place to live. So we were able to attract high-profile experts in our team from other countries that just want to live in Slovenia, even though our salaries are not that grand. So that's one advantage. Another advantage, strength, is considerable support through business incubators and knowledge transfer offices. We like that. We got considerable help with that. Now you also mentioned, disadvantages. What could be changed? That's what we lack is tradition. I think it's this tradition of university spin-offs, of putting stuff from academia to market. It's still relatively rare. There are not many of us. So often people at the university don't have a clue what to do with us. They're just really confused what we are and what we want to do. But from business development perspective, then there's a general disadvantage that we are a very small market, which can be a problem when a company makes its first steps. If you start up in France, you immediately have a large market that you can work in. In Slovenia, we're tiny. But that's, again, if you look at it from the other perspective, it's an advantage. Since you're forced from the start to think wider and look for opportunities internationally. Otherwise you don't survive. So that's that's, I think, is also a way to look at that.
Yeah, I've heard many similar things from other Slovenian startups. Because we're so small that basically from the get-go, everybody has to start thinking internationally. So, because basically there is no sustainable national market big enough. And I've also heard the opposite from, let's say, German or French companies, or maybe American or something. They have problems going international because they've gotten comfortable in their home market. So they don't even think, or they don't position their company in such a way to compete internationally. Okay, thank you, Tomaž. Maybe just a question of your future plans. You mentioned perhaps opening up a lab in the future. Any other potential plans?
Yeah, world domination. No, we are working to become the leading EU lab for this stuff, for genetic monitoring of biodiversity, in its many aspects, and then also to expand beyond the EU. The African markets are very interesting in this regard, and they lack capacity for the stuff we do. So this is the next where we're thinking about expanding. So that's. And this, of course, building up the lab, but then also to work on human resources, to strengthen our team. That's, for a startup, that's a challenge. It's we got lucky because we started with a large team from start. This was so we could kind of tap into the capacities of different people, which we currently are kind of mixed employed at the university and at the spin out. But then the idea is that the spin out becomes completely independent of the university and takes off on its own. So.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, that takes us to SPEKTRAL. So, Blaž, can you take us through your journey? How did you start?
Yes, we founded the company in January 2022. Before that, I was already 5 years off the faculty, working in a structural engineering company, and Jure, the co-founder, he was still at the faculty, working as a research assistant. Initially, a lot of energy was devoted to preparing the already mentioned licensing agreement with the university, obtaining different kinds of technical approvals for our product, Seismolink, and handling various paperwork associated with establishing and operating the company. So suddenly, when starting the company, we found ourselves dedicating most of our time to bureaucracy, learning business finances, product promotions, and so on, and much less to the technical aspects of our product and the services we were offering. But then last year, we participated in the EIT Jumpstarter program for young entrepreneurs. This is an educational program and competition at the same time. I must say that we were literally forced by our colleagues from the Ljubljana University Incubator to take part in this competition, because within this competition there was a workshop and it lasted an entire year. And at first we were really skeptical because we needed time to work, not to spend on some lessons and so on. But in the end, it proved to be an exceptionally well invested time. Throughout this workshop, we learned many necessary entrepreneurial skills, drafted a solid business plan, I would say, and began to understand what else besides the functionality and quality of our product and services is also crucial for success. So as former researchers, I would say this was a crucial learning curve that we needed. And to top it off, we won the first prize in our category. So yeah, I would say it was success. And then entering... Thank you.
I just want to ask you a question. So in a similar vein to this competition, I also read that you received the Rector's Award for the Best Innovation at the University of Ljubljana. Was this before or after the EIT Jumpstarter?
I think that this information is not completely correct. I think it was not the first award. We won award from the Innovation Fund, organized by the Transfer Office. I think the Director's Award is organized by Ljubljana University Incubator. It's not completely correct. We took part. I think we took, third place, but yeah.
That's still an achievement, but thank you for clarifying. Sorry, continue with...
I just wanted to say that then starting this year, I think we were much better equipped with the skills that we needed for running a company. We had a clearer understanding of the market. This was really something new to us because before that, working as researchers, we didn't thought that much about it. Also, the first potential seismic customers started showing interest. We acquired some significant clients interested in the seismic safety of the real estate. Our team started to expand and so on and so on. So in short, the company somehow found its rhythm. We began to establish our position on the market and started gaining some recognition. And looking back at the end of 2023, this gives us great satisfaction and motivation for further work and growth.
Thank you. So, talking about the markets, are you focusing on mostly the EU and Balkan market currently? Like we read in newspapers or in media, there were some big earthquakes in Croatia last year and in Italy. Or are you also exploring opportunities in the Asian market? As we know, Japan is a pretty tectonically active environment. I'm currently also in California, and here everybody's waiting for the big one. And earthquakes are like definitely a thing here in Northern California.
Geographically speaking, like you said, obviously our markets cover all regions that are prone to earthquakes. In Europe, this includes Italy, Greece, parts of Switzerland, Portugal, Slovenia, Croatia. And globally, you already mentioned Japan, also New Zealand, USA, California, South America, like Chile, and so on. For us, it was somehow logical to initially focus on European markets, where similar types of buildings are constructed. This is really important. And regulations are comparable. We have codes, they are called Euro codes, and are a bit specific. Our primary market currently is Italy, which alongside Greece stands as the strongest market, I would say, in Europe concerning seismic safety. But this, of course, doesn't mean that we don't have an eye on American or Asian markets. Definitely not. We're simply not in a rush, and for now the European markets are sufficiently big for us. Also as structural engineers, compared maybe to some other professions, we are a bit conservative.
Okay, so can you tell us a bit more about your product? So who are you selling it to, and what can you do for them?
Okay, so the product we are currently working on, this is some kind of a structural element that increases seismic safety of specific type of buildings. This is called Seismolink. So to give you a better idea, the components of structural systems that are normally used to build shopping malls, industrial buildings and so on, these are called precast buildings. These are usually manufactured in a production facility and then assembled on a site like Lego blocks. And the main advantage of this kind of structures with prefabricated components is their ability that they can be constructed very quickly. But of course, this comes with certain drawbacks. One such drawback is the structural integrity during earthquakes. And the most problematic are the connections between individual prefabricated elements. For example, between facade panels and beams, or facade panels and columns, and so on. And these are the exact locations the Seismolink, our product, can be installed to improve performance of a building.
Okay, thank you. I have some more technical questions here as well. Regarding the timing for conducting a structural analysis in a building, at what stage or point in time, maybe in construction, maybe later, is it essential or relevant to perform such analysis to ensure seismic resilience?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, especially related to current practice in Slovenia. Yeah, well, modern regulations like seismic codes. Yeah, I already mentioned Eurocodes. Mandate seismic analysis for practically every new building in earthquake-prone areas. So this is also true for Slovenia, for example. The challenge arises with older existing buildings that were either not designed for seismic loads or were designed for inadequately low seismic loads. So assessing the seismic safety and retrofitting of such buildings, unless they are, of public interest, largely relies on the decision of the owner. And normally these decisions are non-expert. I believe investments in seismic safety still mean significant challenges, especially for private owners. And the main problem is that the effect of such an investment is not immediately visible and might only become apparent after, 50 years or more, So now regarding complexity of such analysis, seismic analysis of existing structures are generally more complex than analysis for new buildings. For new structures, the requirements from the codes are straightforwardly prescribed, and deviations from the design or any kind of construction errors are normally covered by safety factors. But in the case of the existing buildings, in order to accurately assess seismic safety, first extensive on-field investigations and laboratory tests are needed. And these investigations determine the actual geometry of the structure, mechanical characteristics, the materials that were used, and so on, the quality of the structural details. All these are then crucial inputs for accurate computer simulations of seismic response of buildings. So I guess you already figure out that analyzing existing buildings is much more complicated and expensive than designing new buildings.
Okay, so just to give a bit of a, maybe in simple layman terms or maybe on an example, can you just walk us through what kind of parameters are being used here to calculate the safety assessment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. The first parameter or input data is, of course, location of a building. Yeah, the intensity of seismic loading is normally expressed in terms of ground acceleration. I would say this is the first and most important thing. So building a house in Ljubljana is not the same as building the house in Berlin, California, or Tokyo. The second one is geometry. How many stories? What's the how many square meters does the building have? Then is it reinforced concrete structure? Is it masonry structure, timber structure, and so on? These are, I would say, the most basic parameters, but as a structural engineer, starting with analysis, of course, you would need much more, but these are specifics.
Okay, thank you for the overview. Awesome. And what are your future plans besides world domination?
Yeah, this was a good one. As already mentioned, we are conservative, but still in the long-term future, we would like to expand to American and Asian markets. During this time, we also aim to broaden the range of products we offer, so they will be capable of application for various structural systems and issues. Also, we seek to productize knowledge in the form of some software applications applications for assessing seismic safety. This would mean that an individual building owner would be able to assess seismic safety without any help of an expert.
Okay. Thank you both for the overviews of your companies. This was really interesting. But now let's take a step back a little bit and take a look at this from a bit of a higher level. So first of all, I want to ask you about challenges of startups versus academia. So you both come from an academic background. What sort of unexpected challenges did you face when transitioning from a purely academic environment to running a startup company? So Blaž, you mentioned a bit about learning this like product mindset, learning about markets and stuff. And also Tomaž, I think you also mentioned it a little bit. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, maybe I'll start. It was less of a change than we expected it to be. Most of our team are pure researchers with no actual funding, meaning living on soft funds, looking for project grants. So we were quite used to needing to find money to support our research. So that part was similar, what we do now. But again, on the other hand, it's just figuring out what business is and having this, as you said, product mindset. That's not something that comes intuitively to scientists. We're sometimes described as this happy-go-lucky hippies. We want to share everything and make the world better, which is still nice, and we still try to stick with this philosophy. But then again, you need to make enough money to survive. So it's we had to wrap our heads around that and actually start thinking also about making some profit, not just saving the world. So that was our main mindset shift. Although we didn't do it completely, we still like saving the world. So
the right thing, yeah. Yes, as I already mentioned, my colleague and I initially encountered quite a lot of difficulties, primarily due to the fact that more than 70% of our working time was dedicated to various bureaucratic matters. But I think that in the end, this time was not wasted. In just under 2 years, we learned a great deal, not necessarily in our field of expertise, but the knowledge we gained is crucial for the continued successful operation of the company. And also one thing we learned, this is really important, is that time in the academic circles at the university does not carry the same weight as in the industry. At least in our field, it's like this. Or in other words, we quickly realized that working for our own company, that time is money and time is very much limited.
Okay. And what would you say are the main skills that you've learned during your time at these incubators or competitions, or maybe Tomaž, or like from your experience, not just education?
Yeah, I mean, basically, in the academic education, you really don't learn, unless you study economics, you don't learn much about this stuff at all. We were really, really lucky because one of our team, she was also before leading our multi-million euro large research projects, actually decided to quit her job during COVID and, focused a lot on learning this stuff. So, going through educations from organized by Business Incubator, by Louis, and also reading and figuring this out. This helped us and still helps us a lot with dealing with bureaucracy, with regulations, with all this stuff is something that really academia doesn't prepare you for. You need to know the labor laws, the taxes, all this stuff. It's that part is I think for us this is crucial. Without that we would die, literally, because we don't have a money to hire a business manager, to hire a CEO, definitely not at this point. So having somebody in the team that does that, it's invaluable. It's really priceless.
Yeah, I would just agree with Tomaž. And I think it just takes time to learn all of these skills, and anybody that also takes this path shouldn't be afraid of it in the beginning.
Awesome. So we've circled around these places of help and support. We've mentioned the University of Ljubljana's knowledge transfer office and also the Ljubljana University Incubator. I want to know how did they help, or what kind of help did they provide besides this education? Were there any other organizations that perhaps helped you on your way?
Yeah, I think that through what I said, I already explained a little bit where we got their help. Maybe I would just like to take this opportunity and thank them for all of the support and advices during these last 2 years. I would also like to mention Technology Park Ljubljana. It's also a great environment for startups and spin out in Slovenia. And it's also where our office is currently, and I can say that it's a perfect place for us to prosper.
Yeah, I would like to second that. Particularly the help we got from both the knowledge transfer office and the Ljubljana University Incubator. I mean, their help was priceless and still is. They're still helping us along.
Mm-hmm. Can you just give a brief overview of what the knowledge transfer office of the University of Ljubljana is and what it does?
So maybe I'll start. The way I understand them, is they try to help bring some knowledge or technology developed within academic circuits to the market. To make it marketable and put it into earning some money within the economy. And there we have, not only in Slovenia, but also Europe has a relatively bad track record with that stuff. And they are there to improve that, hopefully. In practice, from our experience, this means smoothing the way and helping us help in negotiations with particular departments, faculties, and so on, where people may not necessarily know what you're about or what you want to do, and they get really confused. So they help with actually getting communication going and finding a solution that helps to both parties. I think that's the way I perceive them or experience them.
Okay, thank you. And Blaž, would you mind giving us a few words about the Ljubljana University Incubator?
Yeah. Firstly, I would say that the people who work there, the colleagues, they know what they're doing. And I think what's really important, and maybe you don't find it that often today, is that they're really passionate about it and you feel the need that they want to help you. For us, this was really important. I already mentioned that they were the ones who forced us to take part in different competitions where we learned a lot and also took some prizes. So I would recommend everybody from the universities, Slovenian universities and faculties, especially from the University of Ljubljana, who are thinking about changing from academia to business life, that they should talk with them, discuss about their plans, about their ideas. This would be maybe my suggestion. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. I just want to know, I imagine throughout your careers and also these spin-out adventures, you've met some people, or you've seen some other organizations and labs. Do you have any comparisons of environments, or have you heard of any best practices that would be relevant to these stories in Slovenia from abroad?
We collaborate with a lab in France, which went through a similar path and struggle with similar struggles that we are struggling. So I mean, I don't. It's not that it was much easier for them than it is for us. So I think that wherever you start, that it's difficult. It's to a point. It's you always find challenges. A thing that I would like, and I've heard that it's done, in other places, is to have direct financial support from university. If university could step into the ownership structure, which it doesn't want to, for example, through a fund, and then be part owner of the company, and then provide some seed money, and then get it back with interest if the company takes off. That's something that's just not doable here, and it would be incredibly valuable at this starting phase where you really have nothing. That actually this could encourage more people to do that. That's something I would and I know this is done in other countries, and this is something where we could have some improvements. So.
Yeah, well, I don't have much experience with this. Also, I didn't talk with any colleague, any foreign founder of a spin-out company. I think that what Tomaž was talking about is a spin-off company. I'm not sure if this is what you meant, Tomaž, but I think there's some new legislation in Slovenia that enables also this. I'm not that familiar. I heard that from the faculty, but I think that also something was done in this field.
Yeah, I can add to that. Yes, now it's actually possible. A couple of years ago, it was completely impossible for university to be in ownership of a commercial company. Now this is in theory possible, but the legislation is not, it's not figured out yet. It's just it exists at the top level laws, but there's no practical way to do it, and there's also no tradition. We tried that. We asked university if they would be happy to do that. They wouldn't even have to give us direct money, but allow us to use as their contribution, allow us to use for free the university labs, for example, and they would get proportion in the ownership in the company for that. But it was just not doable. So that's something where I think a considerable improvement could be done, and more people could be encouraged to go down this path.
Okay, no, this is great information, and I really hope it. So like you said, there have been some developments in the past years, but there is also some room for improvement. Okay, thank you both for all of this information and sharing your stories. So slowly closing off, I want to ask you, do you have any advice for fellow academic entrepreneurs? So what did you learn in the process, and what advice would you give them?
And maybe if I start, as a general advice, it's intimidating. It's a big step. I mean, anybody that says otherwise is lying, I'm sure. It takes some guts, but if you feel you want it, just go for it. Don't give up. That's one thing. Another thing is, when use the resources, incubators and knowledge transfer offices are great. Use them, work with them, but also be patient. Because mainly I think that people don't really, at least in our experience, not that people want to make obstacles for you. They just don't understand what you're doing. So just be patient, talk, try to find a way to find a common language and do this spinning out part, which can be challenging.
Yeah, starting a company is always challenging, not just spinning out, I think. But I'd like to say that despite the researchers having a lot to learn when transitioning from academia to entrepreneurial life, I still believe that on this way they should not forget where they come from. It's important that they don't lose sight of their expertise and the development of the product that they made. That the product made them to try the entrepreneurship in the first place, and by that to contribute something to the society. So if I earlier I mentioned that time is crucial and time is money. This is what we learned. Maybe in the end I'd like to add to this by saying that money isn't everything, money isn't everything also in business. Yeah, this is.
All right, thank you. So, dear guests, dear listeners, thank you very much for taking the time and finding out more about this topic. See you next time.
Thank you for the invitation. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.